morning, everyone, and welcome to American Scousers Morning Coffee or Tea with American Scouser on a Wednesday morning. You know how it goes. Number one dad in here, and number two, but working hard to get to that number one by even doing the Disney World trip over here is Gordo. What's happening?
Not much. Yeah, we did the Disney. I wish we had.
How did that work out for you?
Not well at all.
Really?
Yeah, so I was sick the week before, and of course I get my son sick like 2 days before we leave. But we were going to get his heart scan because he had all those issues last year. So it was his final his yearly heart scan to make sure that he's cleared of everything. And we went. I was like, you know what? It's Lurie's Children's Hospital. If he's too sick to go, I think they would tell us, right? So they gave him a little once over and cleared him, and we were like, all right, let's go. And so the first day we got there, he was like just getting over the cold, so he like wasn't having it. And then the second day, my wife started coming down with it, and then the third day, she didn't even go to the park. She was so sick. So,
Man, that sucks. Yeah, because I know we went 1 year when Jazz was sick. And yeah, I mean, you can see in the picture, she's so pale and stuff, but you know, she's still like sucking it up, going from point to point. I think Leo was there too. And yeah, but Finn enjoyed it at the end. That's all that matters.
Yeah, he had a good time. But
I mean, he's at the perfect age, I think, to be able to kind of enjoy that. Sometimes people bring like their 6-month-old baby. It's like, dude, you're taking yourself to Disney World. Like the baby's not gonna remember any of this.
Right.
I think Finn is like a perfect age for that. Don't Nick, thank God somebody's gonna do it. I appreciate it. Yeah, if you're watching, hit the like, thumbs up, and all that kind of stuff. It does go a long way, actually. Even on Facebook, I know Sparky's on Facebook right now, for example. Sergi says Disney always makes everyone sick, especially my credit cards.
Oh,
yes, I'm sure it was obnoxious before. We haven't been there in a while, but
so we did. My wife is a hard woman, right? She's a 911 dispatcher. She grew up in a house with 3 other women. Like her father was a union painter with the sailor's mouth. She's not like soft at all. So like she didn't grow up on Disney. And so when we had my son, we started watching Disney movies. She started picking up on Beauty and the Beast, but she didn't want anyone to know that she liked it. I just realized that it was a movie that kept coming on. And I was like, you like this, don't you? She's like, no, I don't like it. He likes it. And I'm like, I don't think he likes Beauty and the Beast as much as you do. So I surprised her and got her like the Beauty and the Beast dinner, or like, it's called.
Oh, that thing is awesome, isn't it?
Be Your Guest restaurant. Yes, it's awesome if you like food. Now she's picky, and so is my son, and so I ended up spending $300, and I was the only one that really ate any food. It was ridiculous.
Honestly, I don't even remember the food that much from that place. I just remember like the place was really cool overall, like the whole, like the lighting and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, but it was cool. I had snails. I'd never had escargot before, so I had that. That was good.
Good stuff. Yeah, I mean, like I say, like that place was. I mean, there's a thing for the Disney, and if you're a little one, don't listen to Cersei people. If you've never been, you have a little one, gotta take the little one, and not to mention like ours were like Disney kids, like watching Disney Channel on on TV and stuff like that. So ended up being that. We're never like Disney kids where like everything is Mickey. Well, Angie is a huge Mickey fan, which is slightly nauseating, but still, aside from that, but despises Minnie. Like I don't know, big hates, major hates towards that. But let's hit some headlines, and then we'll talk about Southampton. A lot of rumors coming out, like Finn might go out and play over there, like a lot of kids coming out and stuff like that. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but let's hit some headlines over here. I mean, okay, like obviously Maresca is pulling because Mudryk is doing I didn't knowingly take anything, which obviously only goes so far, knowingly or unknowingly you're doing this stuff. I didn't read too much into it yet to see when he's accused of doing it, because the urine, I was told that, I read in one article that it was going on for a while, but obviously Maresca is going to come out and say, oh yeah, like I trust him. He didn't knowingly take anything and stuff. What do you make of that ordeal?
So being like a fan of UFC and boxing, like this happens.
I thought you were going to be like being a fan of doping.
No, yeah, being a fan. in baseball, I do say that there should be one. The DH should change into someone who's just loaded up steroids. You can make the game so much better, but not for. I wouldn't agree for this sport, but no, like these guys have so many people around them, and they have their personal trainers. They have like nutritionists that they're probably at their house. A lot of these guys, and so you ingest a lot of things that other people tell you are good for you, and sometimes it's just an ingredient, and all it is for these. Like the water and stuff like that, it's like trace amounts. So like it's similar to like a drug test at work. It's like if you took an edible like 6 weeks ago and somehow it's still like a small trace amount, you're still high, basically, according to the company. So that it might be a situation where like someone gave them an energy drink or someone gave them a mix of a protein powder or something, like a new one, like try this, it's a new formula. Because these guys are also getting a lot of new products shoved in their face. Like, here, try this. And it could have an ingredient that's banned on the ban list. Now, you could also argue that it's up to them to really make sure that, they're not taking anything illegal. And part of the reason why, because this came out, well, apparently he tested positive in October. And a lot of people are saying, well, why has it come out this much? It might be because it's such a trace amount and they wanted to be 100% sure. So I don't know that. On the other side, he does look like somebody who might enjoy a couple of pops of something extra in the gym,
I don't know why, but I always made fun of it because he was like Matusha's boy. He was like Mudryk back in the day before like Chelsea signed him as well. But so as he says, only available in the Eastern Bloc, and I do get good old Sharapova. I remember her, but I get I'm torn on this because I know what you're saying. There's somebody like saying like, okay, take this pill, take this pill, take this pill, high five, go out there and kick some ass kind of a deal, like whatever it is. But at the same time, I mean, if this is your gig, you got to be responsible for what the hell you're doing. You can't go around if you're like, I don't know, sitting on a board or something like that. I signed so many papers, I'm not going to read all of them. Like you can't, so you can't do that. You have to be ultimately responsible for like what you're doing. So I know, and I haven't seen one dope guy who dopes come out and be like, I did that on purpose. It was delicious or something like that. Obviously, they're going to be like, oh, I had no idea that was forbidden and stuff. But I mean, I'm assuming it came out because like any drug test kind of stuff, when it's positive, you have to do it again until you're 100% positive. But 4 years seems like a big time. Good morning, Byron Reds. Actually, I'll be appearing on their show. Hopefully, Plug in American Scouts are getting us some more like likes and follows over here. Yes, hit the likes over here this Friday, actually. So that should be interesting as well. But go ahead, Gordon. No, 4 years is what they're saying. Are you taking that?
I mean, I guess it depends, right? Like, because it sounds like it has come out what it is. I haven't read anything on that or know anything about the substance that it's containing. But if it's something, they do have like tiers of severity of like what the actual chemicals are and how much was in it. So it's not one of these things where, you test positive, it's 4 years. It has a lot to do with, how much you've taken, how much is in the bloodstream, what kind of substance it is, and what it does for you. So, I mean, until I read that, I don't know. 4 years might be the call, but that is a long time, especially for somebody in their prime. I did see tinfoil hat. I think it might have been Cersei that was like, maybe they might be using this to get out of a contract, a long-term contract with somebody who's kind of underperforming. So
that could be a new Chelsea thing, like gotta thin out the locker room and just passing out. Why don't you take this pill? You take this pill. That's Cersei in a nutshell right there. If you want a conspiracy theory, just hit him up and he'll hook you up with one. Okay, here's another one right here. Vitor Pereira. Good old, I know him from his days at Fenerbahce. I really liked him as a Fenerbahce coach, actually. And his talent, I guess, is being able to get the most out of people by putting him, like he's the guy who created Ferdi, who's at Brighton now. Because before then, Ferdi was a winger. And then he made him a back, like a wing back kind of a player, and then a left back, right back, and stuff like that. So honestly, I don't know if his body is going to hold up to the Premier League. We'll see. But Ferdi would have been a great transfer for Liverpool because he can play right back and left back and defensive mid and winger if needed and stuff. So such a like a versatile dude that you
Yeah.
could have used him anywhere, and he's good. But same thing with Kim. He brought him from the South Korean league to Fenerbahce. Nobody knew of him then. He went to Napoli from there. Obviously, he's at Bayern now and stuff like that. Osai Samuel, he made him a same thing. He was a winger. He was like, "You're not going that good going forward. Why don't you be a right back?" kind of thing. He made him a right. He's still a right back. So, like the dude is good. I just don't know if he is good enough for like the Premier League. I mean, we were talking about this in the Premier League show actually with Galley. Do you think for Wolves and for Southampton, do you want to bring a manager that you think can keep you in the Premier League? Or are you more saying like, you know what, this guy is going to be here even if we get relegated? So we're actually looking for a guy who can guide us through championship if that happens.
You know, with how volatile the situation, you usually don't see a team that's not getting results get so volatile. It was 3 games in a row. There was like basically fights where the whole team is melting down. It was like on each other's as teammates. You know, there was the situation with Cunha with the management team of Ipswich in the last game. So it might just be a case of like, all right, who's available, who's the best, because we just need somebody right now because something has to change. It's getting embarrassing. We're going to get fined. You know, we can break a good team because the thing about Wolves is they're one of the most disappointing teams right now because of who they have on there. They have such I feel like raw talent at that club. And I feel like maybe this is the guy that, like you said, he's kind of good with individually putting players in the right spots. I feel like Wolves have a team that could easily be mid-table. They just haven't connected. And he might be the guy that moves pieces around in a certain way that, you know, makes the team start clicking. But they definitely – it was about to implode. So I could see this being a panic buy of just like who's available right now that has proven himself with some bigger clubs.
Yeah, I can see that. I think he's a good person to bring on. I really do. I don't know. I mean, he played – and I don't know if that's his real thing or that's what he was doing. Like when you looked at the Fenerbahce squad at the time, he was doing like a 3-5-2 or a 5-3. You know what I mean? Like based on like who he's playing against and stuff. And that's the thing he got back in Turkey was the fact that he was playing 3 in the back, and people are like, "You don't do 3 in the back," blah blah blah. And you know, I thought he was actually doing really good. And if he was given another year, I thought it was going to be successful. But in a typical Fenerbahce way, we canned him right away. So. I mean, bringing the Portuguese guys smart, I think, too, for Wolves.
Yes,
going back to the winning formula, adds if all else fails, add some more Portugal in there. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I know I watched, you know, O'Neill talk about like the injuries and how like they sold a lot of players and they didn't really replace them and stuff like that. I saw this like a short or a reel or something from his press conference, and like I mean, I talked about this yesterday on the panel show too. That. Like, I get it as a neutral looking from outside. You're like, I hear you, man. Like, you know, if you were at a pub at night and you're like complaining to me and be like, dude, then they sold all these guys and they didn't replace them. Cheers. Cool. Okay, I get it. But I mean, if I'm in the locker room or if I'm a fan, I don't know if I want to be hearing that because it sounds very hopeless. Like there's nothing we can do kind of a thing. And that's not probably what you want. When your leadership says, what are you going to do? It's going to take some time over here. And I don't think Wolves had the time. But whatever happened to Kubo, says Sir Z. Kubo never moved, did he? Isn't he still in Spain?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything.
Good, Andre. Remember when everybody was losing their head? Where's Saido, by the way? We haven't seen Saido in the audience in some time. But yeah, like he would lose his head because we didn't get Andre, who none of us knew what the hell he was all about. And yeah, there he is now. But I mean, if you're hiring, if you're in charge of Wolves, if you're in charge of Southampton, are you trying to bring a guy like good old Big Sam to kind of see if he can survive? Or are you saying, you know what, almost like counting it as we're relegated. If they make something happen, they make something happen. But this is the guy we want in charge when we go down.
I think bringing like a very old school English manager into a situation like this is like the opposite effect. It is like the least English team in the Premier League, I feel like, in terms of the way that they play. I've like Nuno has definitely left his stamp. Like that's the part of the problem is like this is still Nuno's team. They're still trying to play like Nuno's style. And I don't think Gary O'Neill fit that style at all. And it definitely clashed with the players. So I do think that this is probably the right move in terms of like getting the proper management in there, because I always felt like this is the closest to like a Spanish team in the Premier League. Besides maybe City, like sometimes the way that they play is very Spanish, and but that's Pep's influence. But yeah, I think Big Sam would be the worst. That would just be to me would be signaling like white flag, like we're relegated this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. And I think here's the thing though, like when you look at Wolves, it feels like they have more pieces in place. We were talking about this on the panel show. Nobody has any hope for Southampton. By the way, I did mention I'm going with Byron Reds. It's actually tomorrow, not Friday. So I just looked at the email. I was like, oh shit, yeah, that's right. It is it is tomorrow. It's tomorrow at 5 o'clock Eastern. Actually, our time over here. So it's when you like. I've been hopping on a couple of calling shows and stuff, and that's actually I hopped on their calling show one of these days, and yeah, the time difference obviously is an ordeal, 6 to 8 hours, whichever way you're looking at it. But bring a coach from Uncle Sam instead. I don't know about that, but
no.
Yeah, they can barely find a coach over here. But yeah, I mean, does Southampton have any hope? Like, if you look at it, if you're taking charge of Southampton, I can almost feel like if you change the charge of Wolves, first of all, you're a lot closer. I mean, Southampton, you're 9 points away from safety, and you've only gotten 5 points out of the first 16. So it's like, that's like 32 games worth.
Even Ipswich has more hope than Southampton, because Ipswich is like, what are we, 16 games in now? I think 13 of the 16 games Ipswich have been leading at one point in the game. I think
Really?
that's, yes. Yeah, it was surprised me. But they've scored first in like vast majority, like 75% of the games they've scored first, which is incredible. And I honestly think that's a team that you get maybe 1-2 good players in January, and they could escape this relegation battle, because I think that they have the tools in. Southampton is, I mean, it's they took so long to go down. Like Kelly, this is one of Kelly's teams that it annoys her so much whenever we talk about him. She doesn't even want to talk about him on Drinking Inside the Box anymore, because she's like, it took so long for them to go down. She was ready for them to go down maybe 3 years ago. And then she's like, then they'll be up. And then we'll wonder why they even decided to win and come back up, because they'll go right back down. She predicted it 2 years ago. And here we are. I mean, it's an absolutely hopeless team. I mean, they've conceded 36 goals in 16 games. There's nothing to build on there.
And it feels like we were talking about it. I think Glenn was mentioning it's Glenn, the Brentford fan that you found for the panel show. He was mentioning that, the Southampton of old, that was, I mean, heck, he used to be our, feeder team for a while, right? Like the farm system kind of a thing. I mean, they don't have as much young talent coming anymore. Like I say, you look at the squad and you don't say, there's a lot more over here. To be fair, Martin has not helped it by trying to pretend they're City or, like Arsenal or Liverpool and play like that. At one point, you're going to have to realize, hey, we're not good enough to be able to do this. What can we do right now? I understand you have ideals and you want to play a certain way and stuff. But at the same time, you got to be realistic and say, hey, you know what? This is not for us. Let's find a happy medium over here, kind of a deal. When I look at this, I mean, the thing that I think Wolves got going for them is goals. The conceding goal spot is ridiculous and scary. 40 goals in like 16 games. But
in all the games that they've conceded a lot, it's been like a 3-4 or a 2-3. So like it's like they've also scored in there. So that one's it's more misleading than the Southampton one in my opinion. But it is.
Yeah, I mean, they score goals though. That exactly. I mean, they have 24 goals still, which is like the highest. High, almost like 11th. Like Brentford obviously is going to be there, but because they score nonstop. But I mean, you look at all the other teams, they scored as many as Fulham.
Yeah.
But when you concede 40, you're going to be on the bottom of the league. So it's kind of like I still think Wolves come out of this. You look at Everton and their goals scored, and they struggle with that. But I don't know. Like, that's the thing. That's the difference, I think, is Sean Douche, as I call him, knows how to get a point like they did this past weekend. 0-0, but 8 points, as opposed to going for it all the time and getting 0 at the end because you're just not good enough. Because ultimately, the squad is not good enough.
Yeah.
Leeds with us as well. I think bottom three will be relegated this year. Sparky, that's not really a prediction because it does. They are gonna get relegated. But I'm assuming he means like as it is
Yeah.
now. I'm just assuming.
The current, yeah. It would
Obviously.
be
So
a
that would
great,
be
it would
Ipswich,
be a great
Wolves, and
prediction.
Southampton. Are you going with that? Ipswich, Wolves, Southampton getting relegated.
I don't,
I
man.
think Wolves come out of there.
If I was going to choose the most likely to come out of there, I think it'd be Wolves because I think Ipswich stick with their manager and their playing style, and it doesn't click for them, and they go back down. But I mean, I think that they can hold their head high because, frankly, when they came up, it's just like this is one of these teams that probably do not deserve they're
It was
not.
like a try by.
Yeah, they're never at the caliber of the Premier League, but they gave it a good try, and I think like their fans can be proud of them. But yeah, I think Wolves have the two out of those three. The Wolves have the tools to get out of it.
It's like Ipswich coming to the Premier League reminds me of like a team managing to get to Europe. They're like, oh, this is fun. Like we're playing European games like 1 year and then they go. I feel like that's how like Ipswich is coming up. But I think Wolves come out. I know Anand thinks Ruud's Van Nistelrooy is the best thing since sliced bread, but I really think Leicester or Everton are in more danger than Wolves.
Yeah.
Down the road, I think Wolves have a better squad. You know, we don't know what they're going to do in January and stuff like that, but I do think Wolves come out of there. And Vitor, like I say, I think it's a good choice. I don't know if it's a good long-term choice. We'll see about that, but I think it's a good choice for what they need, especially. But let's get to go ahead.
Everton have new ownership coming in, right? They're like in the final stages of approval. So, and if that gets over the line before January, they might have a little bit of cash. So they might, just based on that, they might be able to bring one or two players in that will kind of secure them. So I'm with you. I think Leicester go down. I just haven't seen it from them. I know they got the new manager bounce, but I don't think Ruud's good enough.
I'm not buying the Ruud's love yet. I mean, I just don't see like, oh wow, you know, like I haven't. First of all, it hasn't been long enough to be able to say good or bad yet. But I don't think, you know, like people. I think I'm low on them because some people are so freaking high on him that it's like, let's calm the hell down over here. So he was doing great in Manchester United. He beats Leicester twice, and it was Leicester. So I mean, when he was doing that, I was like, dude, it's Leicester City, relax. And now he's in Leicester City, and he did, get the new manager bounce, but then I mean, they got demolished by Newcastle, which at St. James Park, that's not bad. But
my favorite was like some of the Man United fans being like, sign him, and I'm like, you've already done this, and it didn't work. This is exactly what happened.
What do you make of that drama, by the way? I was about to jump to us, but the whole like Rashford Garnacho ordeal. I mean, if you think about it, it's the best time to do this stuff, right? When you first come in, you don't want to hang around for 2-3 months and be like, yeah, by the way, I don't like people who don't practice. You got to do it on the first day. I think he got lucky because they did win the game at the end because of yet another City collapse. Because if that game ends 1-0, and you don't get any goals because you didn't play two of your best strikers or forwards, then, you know, it doesn't help the cause. I remember like we helped Ten Hag like this and extended his life when he made some big changes and then we lost. Did he like bench Maguire or something? I can't remember what he did, but he did something that was like, oh, wow. And they happened to beat us or something. And it was like, it worked. Ten Hag knows what he's doing kind of a deal. So do you think it's going to pay off? Does Rashford stay there? Or he's like, you know, or I don't know. There's like a lot of mixed messages, obviously. But yeah, because he said he's ready to leave, like a new challenge, blah, blah, blah.
Rashford's
Garnacho has been leaking the team sheets to his brother. Really? Like he's like texting it?
That's a weird one.
I'm benched again, bro. Like, yeah, I mean, what do you make of it? Do those guys stay there? Do they change their ways? Or here's the thing. It's not only Rashford and Garnacho you're taking on, let's face it. There are people in the background who probably like Rashford and stuff like that. So you're taking on the clique at the same time. So who wins?
Well, so Rashford's an interesting one because I think like he really was damaged by them bringing in Ronaldo, right? Like that was his... He had done his time in the shadows. He was becoming a pivotal player. Everyone at the club loves him. He loves the club. And then when it was his time to be the man, They're like, oh, wait. We got this 90-year-old man who can still score, and he's going to start over you. And like, I think that really damaged his ego. It damaged his effort. And you saw it. Like, he's just not the same player since he's had to deal with the Ronaldo stuff. With Amran, with what he's currently doing, this is what this club needs, right? They need like a daddy, right? They need a father figure. Everyone else has come into this club and been like, it's still Sir Alex. It's still Sir Alex Ferguson's team. Like, I'm just a caretaker. This is something that Sir Alex Ferguson built, and they need somebody to be like, no, you suck. I don't care. Like, you're sitting down. I'm going to take charge. I'm going to like take the reins. That guy's old. He's out of here. And we need to like sweep in a new generation. Like, this is a club that still is hanging on to the early 2000s. That's why they haven't changed anything. It's because they're still like, look what we won. And like, you know, that's all great, but that's now far in the past. They need somebody that's going to like basically sweep out the garbage, and that's currently what he's doing. So I think, will it work in his favor? I mean, I think he did get very lucky with 2 very late goals. But if the players start buying in and being like, all right, yeah, it's time to do some hard work, then you'll start seeing results turn. I still don't think that this is going to be like Man United's year, but neither was ours the first year that Klopp was in.
Yeah.
So like you need time to change the whole culture, and he's starting early, like you said, and I think that's positive. But yeah, Rashford I think needs to leave United in order to refine his career, because I think he's just one of
Where
these.
would he go? Like Sergi says, Chelsea or Arsenal. I just don't see United selling him to one of those guys.
I can see him being like a Darwin. I think he would thrive in like in Italy. It's
Italy,
it's becoming very easy for foreigners to fill holes in like that Italian league, because like you're like, when you look at the US men's national team, they're good players. They're not like world class, but they're having some phenomenal seasons over there.
Yeah.
And so I like Rashford can still give you 90 minutes when he's healthy, and he can still score goals, and he's still good at assisting, and he's a big boy, and he can make the tackles and start the press really high up the field. And I think I think he would thrive in a league like Italy.
I mean, here's the issue. Like Sparky says, I think, there are not a lot of teams. When you're moving Rashford, you're picking up some of the wages. Nobody's paying that. And nobody's paying that to Rashford on top of that. You know what I mean? That's the thing. It would be one thing to pay that to a player, but you're definitely not going to give it to Rashford as Rashford is right now.
Right.
And he might just need a change of thing. I mean, let's face it, we've all done it. Like, something can happen at your workplace, if you will, right? And then kind of like puts you down, and you lose a little bit of that motivation. It's really hard to get that back at the same place. So I can kind of see that. Sergi says he could join. Is Greenwood still in Spain?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Terrorizing ladies everywhere. Yeah, I did not realize he was still out there. But Saudi, I mean, that's the thing. Like, will he go to like a PSG, Bayern? I mean, it has to be a team like that can, pay some of the wages at a high level. I think Rashford will do fine. I just don't see them selling him to and playing against them. Of course, they did it to Sancho at the same time, so who knows?
See, I can't see him in Italy or France. It just, there's something like the Italian game is a little slower. Like, they still are a lot more defensive than any other league, and he's still the player that kind of walks a little bit. And I think he just get eaten alive in like Germany, and like I don't know. It just, his playing style doesn't seem like it would suit Germany, but. If he finds the right manager, the right club, and he finds the love for the game again, he's a great player. Like, and if he can get that back, his potential, then I mean, he would probably succeed anywhere. Because if you're talking about the Rashford of like 3 or 4 seasons ago, I think you'd say like he'd probably walk into any team. I wouldn't, maybe not starting lineup, but he'd definitely be in the first 16 names on a team sheet.
Yeah, I mean, one of the few guys, because of more of his like off the pitch stuff that I find hard to hate on as a United player, because most of them are really easy. But yeah, it's one of those guys. And like I say, I think it's mostly due to what he does off the pitch than on the pitch. But yeah, he definitely probably, I just don't see him suddenly be like, you know what? You're right. I should start practicing hard. I don't think you just like switch it like that. The Garnacho thing, I had not read about leaking the lineups, which
That's so weird.
I don't understand the advantage of that. Is he like taking a Did he get caught taking a photo of it? They're like, hey, what are you doing over there? They're like, oh shit, like just sending it to my brother. It's just like, yeah, I don't get that at all. But speaking of little brothers, I don't know if it's a big brother or a little brother, but let's get to today's game. I'm reading more and more leaks all over the place. Obviously, we talked about these guys not playing for U21. A lot of them did not feature for them. What was that, Monday?
Yeah.
So the sign was they might appear today, but I had assumed they'd be on the bench. So what are you expecting to see when we gather around here in like 3 hours over here for the pre-match?
This is one that I think we always say it, like, love to see a rotation, but don't think we're gonna get it, and then we don't really see a big rotation. So I'm expecting more of that. But I mean, you could definitely see the team is starting to get tired, right? Like it's unbelievable what they did against Fulham too. So like I think even if we had played a full 90 with 11 guys on the pitch, I think they would have been tired from that. Fulham are not a bad team. The fact that we did what we did, Slot held it to a 3-3-3, which is, I mean, that's pretty ballsy. I know we were at home, but that's pretty ballsy. And we still bossed the game. And, you know, Gravenberch, I mean, played phenomenal, like was asked to do extra, and he's played almost every minute of the season so far. I think these guys, this is the game to give them a break. Like, I think and it's one of these things too that, like, if you start making a couple of changes, you might as well make a bunch. And then if we lose, we can just say, wow, we totally rotated the team. Because if you...
Yes, do you just do that and say, you know what, we roll the dice and see how it turns out? Because we did do that before in the club era where it was like, kids, get out there, and, they're like, Uncle Milner, take him out there with you, show him where the pitch is. And then, you would put one or two guys over there to kind of lead the youngsters kind of thing. Do you expect something to start? Because Endo is like, Endo, Elliott, you have a lot of these guys that need playing time, probably deserve playing time. So you put them out there and surround them with some kids, because that almost feels unfair. When we do that, I feel bad for a guy like Endo or Elliott's going out there, because they're getting evaluated based on what's going to happen out there. And you're out there. I mean, we've been out there with like people who don't know what they're doing. They make you look bad, even though you're doing your thing.
Yeah. A little unfair, but also these guys, like, do you want to play or not? I mean, like, like, what's your poison, man? Do you want to play? This is what you get. It's like, you're not good enough to break into the starting 11. This is what you get. And now go and show it. So it's a little unfair, but I'm sure they'd rather play than sit. I think that the way the season's gone, like, we're obviously overperforming. I think before a ball was kicked in August, I think this is overperforming. If you were to look at a week before Christmas, and this is where we're at, game in hand, 2 points clear of the second place team, this is overperforming. So realistically, you'd look at this as like, this is our chance to win silverware. Let's just get top 4. We'll take this trophy. We'll put it in the cabinet. Slot wins the trophy in its first year. Everything's great. But now, like, we have a possibility of challenging for the league. So this cup becomes a little less important. I think this is the one that you make those changes. I mean, it's Southampton, so it's like, I don't think anybody would fault you for starting children with Endo, like holding hands, playing Red Rover for 90 minutes, and then losing 1-0, or even, I can see this being like a bunch of kids and we lose on penalties, and I think everybody would be happy. I think this cup has lost its importance as the season has gone on, because I think we're kind of in a title race now.
That's a good point, actually, because the way we approached this 2 months ago is probably very different than how we approach it today, lineup wise and rotation wise and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, that's a good point. And honestly, like, you gotta get some of these guys. So you're gonna have I'm looking at Serzi's list, who's putting, is that Naomi Campbell he's putting out there? She was hot back in the day. Keller, Neoni probably could start. I can see that in like the Soboslai role or something like that. Kwanzaa, Endo, Elliott, Nunez.
And then he'll score 4 goals today.
Yes.
And then everyone will be like, he's back, baby. And then we roll him out and he does nothing.
Trevor says, if you can't rotate and beat a team that just got pummeled by Spurs and fire their manager. Yeah, I don't know what if is that a good thing or a bad thing? I would have actually rather I kept the dude To be honest with you, for this game, rather than get a new manager and make it look like it's a new era kind of a thing. But at the same time, Southampton probably is like, we got bigger fish to fry. We got to stay in the league. But we just talked about it 15 minutes ago. They could be like, we're not winning the league. At least let's try to see if we can win the League Cup.
Yeah. This is the rally cry for the new management, right? It's like, let's go. This is what we've got. Like, this is fresh start. We're in the quarterfinals. We have an ability to, especially if the team sheet comes out while they're sitting in the locker room getting prepared, and it's a young team. Then it's like, we've got everything to play for. We're playing a U21 team right now. Like, let's go out there and win something. So I would much rather have them be like, same get up for the game, same manager, same boring, not going to work speech with the same tactics. I'd rather that, because I think it would be easier to win with children. Now it's like this is our season right here, boys. Like, come with me, I'll take you to the promised land.
I mean, he could go out there. If you're a manager, they don't have a manager, right? But they can be like, they're like, 3 games, guys. We gotta play 3 solid games, kind of a thing. So it's like, why not? So Lee says, I'd rather get knocked out of the FA Cup early, as that has more impact on the business end of the season. Winning this is a huge boost to the squad, the boss, and the fan. That's the good point, too. Like, there's something to be said about winning this thing and putting it in your back pocket in, like, March, because it does help teams almost, like, propel, whereas FA is kind of gets in the way as you're playing, like, really crucial games now. I personally really, as much as, I love a trophy and stuff like that, like, if we got knocked out today, I'm gonna sleep just fine, as opposed to losing on the title or something.
It is a huge boost, but it doesn't win you championships, because it happened literally last year. That should be very.
But if you sacrifice one, because you said earlier that this cup has lost its importance. If I said give up FA Cup or League Cup, which one do you give up?
League Cup, just because we're the current holders.
Old school.
It kind of feels like it feels like this is our cup again, right? It's like kind of a little bit of a shock if we're not in the final. That's what, like, over the last 6-7 years. So this is one that's like it feels attainable every year. And so not getting it wouldn't be a big deal, because I think we'll challenge again next year for it. Whereas like the FA Cup is, I don't know, I feel like it's a bigger event. It comes closer to the season. You get into that FA Cup final and you're still in a title race, and you're close in the the knockout rounds of the Champions League. It is one of those feelings where it's like boom, check, boom, check, boom, check. It's just like a great feeling. Whereas like last year we won this, the wheels fell off anyways because we didn't have the numbers. This year we didn't, unless we make a couple signings in January, this team is going to be dead. So like it by April, end of March, like this doesn't matter as much. It does give you a big boost because it gave us a big boost last year, but the wheels still fell off in March because we just didn't have the legs. So I don't think it says.
I have maybe more hope this year because I feel like the squad is managed differently in terms of rotation, subs, and stuff like that are a lot better than what we used to, except
we're still seeing all the same injuries.
You have to get somebody to rotate with like Mack and Gravenberg and stuff like that. Otherwise, you're going to work, run those guys to the ground.
We're still seeing the same injuries, though. Same players are still getting injured. So, like, I agree with you because, like, all the players have said it too, and I don't watch trainings. I'm not into that, but I don't see that. So, but I have to trust what the players say, and they're saying that practices are less intense. They feel like we're more ready for games. Their legs are a little bit, more up for the challenge of a 90 minutes. But that's all well and good, but we're still seeing the same players get injured. So I don't.
Yeah, that's fair, I guess. Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, you're gonna have injuries, right? You're gonna have injuries regardless. Like without muscle injuries, you're gonna have injuries based on kicks and tackles and stuff like that. I just think like there is less miles on minutes, and the playing style on top of that, even when you have the minutes, is a bit more okay. Let's control. Like you set your own pace as opposed to running around all the time. Playing basketball every game. Like every game was like a Fulham game. With Klopp. Whereas I feel like there's a lot more of calm down, let's pass it around, control the game and stuff like that, which is a lot more rest compared to, what we did before, like the
That's true.
gaming press and stuff like that. So I'm hoping that translates, but there are certain positions I think that you need to be able to rotate. If Endo is not going to be able to come in and, for example, spell McAllister, if that's not going to happen, you got to have another guy in there. And I really think they will. I really think they will address it in January. I hope, I guess. Maybe that's where I'm going at. I was going to address, does this show Sparky's age? No, I'm just kidding. I'm messing with Sparky too much today. But no, seriously, like I know the FA Cup thing is a lot more important to the UK, like people in the UK, the locals, if you will, because of its history, right? I mean, like FA Cup is FA Cup. It used to be, I mean, before Champions League and stuff like that, it was the cup almost, right? Like even I remember like back in the day, the European Cups were not so much bigger than the FA Cup and stuff like the Champions League is now. But I feel like these days, maybe to the newer generation, not that I'm part of the newer generation, I'm as a foreigner, I'm not as like in tune with the FA Cup, the history and stuff like that. To me, I feel like they're about the same. I know FA Cup means more to most, but in my eyes, is that because, definitely not because of my age, but is that because I'm kind of like, a foreigner looking out from outside? To me, value-wise, they're about, FA Cup might be like a little bit above, but it's not like I'm not going to be like, damn it, I wanted the FA Cup or something like that.
See, but I was raised by a born and bred Scouser, so
yeah.
I'm biased because I might not be as old as Sparky, but I have the same sentiment because I was drilled into me at a young age that this is like the magic of the FA Cup. I mean, like, just look at the numbers for tuning in to watch the balls being picked for the rounds every round. Like, it is literally like it's an event every time. Like, people are tuning in. All the TVs turn on to looking at the next round and who's matching up with who. And you're excited about like local rivalries when they pop up. Like, the plays you heard in the room when they were picking the balls, and like, just the audience there is going, oh, that's a good one. I'll watch that. But it is like Sparky says, it's a lifeline. Like, anybody can win the FA Cup. Like, it starts months ago. Like this. I mean,
you know what I mean? Like, can they though? Look at the last 10 winners. Like, you don't get the Cinderella story anymore. I understand the financial part of it, but that's not doing me any good. I'm like, yeah, I'm happy for you guys. We got to play over there, and you made like gates for the next 5 years. You're taking care of. It's good for the smaller clubs, but this whole like, yeah, you might get a Cinderella story, make it to quarterfinals or something like that. But at the end of the day, it's always the same teams winning it.
It's a tournament. Like, the tournament is better. Maybe the cup isn't as like great to win, but like the tournament is better because FA Cup moments are always like third round, like Harrogate Town beating Arsenal or something, like somebody, just a giant killer. Like, this is where the term giant killer comes from, is the FA Cup, and you get those moments. That is them winning the FA Cup, right? They know they're not going to get higher than that. But the fact that they get to walk onto, the pitch of the Emirates, or they get to, they're in the changing room of Old Trafford, and they're like from a Sunday league, non-league team, and they get to go there and play and, scare the crap out of them. How many FA Cup games is there like, a fifth division team scores first and the whole place goes nuts? Or we saw Arsenal, I forget the team's name, but they saw Arsenal, they had to play at like a park. There was like 200 seats at this tiny little park stadium, like fold out chairs they had to sell. Like, that stuff, you don't get that anywhere else. Like, that's never going to be in the Champions League.
It's, as the Americans would say, it's like March Madness.
Yeah, well,
where you can have like a small team. Look at the small school making it, and then it's I mean, I get that, and there's like great moments you watch. You're like, oh, that's really cool. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like March Madness. They're like, oh shit, now it's Duke, and then, most of the. I mean, occasionally you get a guy to make it to Final Four and stuff like that. But like I say, it's just I get that, and it has more cool moments to it. But I'm looking as a Liverpool fan perspective. Apart from those cool moments, to me, in terms of its value to Liverpool, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about like the tournaments being better. It's almost like the World Cup versus the Euros kind of a thing to me, right? Like, they're both cool, but this one is cooler. So I understand the FA Cup value, but to me, in terms of winning it, as a Liverpool fan, just because it has more cool moments early on doesn't impact the value of the trophy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess. It's one of those, like, it's the epic. I don't know. It's the FA Cup. I'm with Sparky.
You're just brainwashed.
Yeah.
No seeded teams. Yeah, I mean, like I say, I understand why it's better than the FA Cup. I guess my thing is, like, I'm not arguing which tournament is better. It's more of like a which means more to me when it's one. It's about the same to me, because I'm not going to be like, we beat an unseeded team, so FA Cup means more. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, they're going to have the same value when we finish the season. Okay, let me ask you this. Does it make a huge difference if we end the season with one trophy and it's the FA Cup, or it's just a League Cup? Would you consider one season a lot better than the other, or ultimately it would be like, we want to?
That's a really good point, because I think I would. Like,
I wouldn't. That's my point. For example, you would.
Like last year, if we had, in my mind right now, had we won the FA Cup and not the League Cup, I think in my mind, and I don't know why, but because this is the first time this has ever been posed to me to think like this, but in my mind, last year would have been a better year.
Is that because it's at the very end?
I think so.
Because you know what I mean? Like, you end with that. Whereas the League Cup, you win, and then it's like, walk.
Yeah. And then we watch this downhill grind last year, right? Where it's like, it's kind of going downhill. Oh, but then we win the FA Cup. So it's kind of like, you get the valedictorian getting a prize, and then it's like, and for perfect attendance, Liverpool. And you're like, I didn't win the big prize, but I'm still on the dance,
Yeah, it's kind of like an odd thing. And I think it really changes the perspective. I think if you are from the UK, I haven't spoken to one person who hasn't said FA Cup is so much more special and stuff. Because I know back in the day, like I say, I'm old enough to know that it's such a big deal. But is it harder to win the FA Cup? See, I don't think it is. I mean, it's more games, but is it really harder to win the FA Cup?
I just think that maybe because it's like the congestion at the end of the year. Like, in order to win it,
that's a good point.
You have to sustain your form throughout the year, or at least be good enough in the FA Cup to win it. And like that's really hard to do. I mean, it's like you see teams start to plateau, and like Tottenham's perfect example, except this year they've kind of gone backwards. We're like, they're going to be league winners every November, except for this November. Like, and then by February, it's like, I hope we get top 4, and then it's like a battle for top 4 every year for them, because it's just so hard to continue that streak all the way through the season. So I think in terms of when you have to win the FA Cup, I think it's harder to win. But if you look at them, if you pull them out of the season and go, what's different about this cup than this cup? Not much, because by the time that you get to the 4th round, you're pretty much going to be playing Premier League teams every round from there on out.
Yeah.
So there's not much difference if you look at them like that. But like where they're at in the season, I think it's harder to win the FA Cup just because your team is more tired.
I think it becomes a bit at the end of the season, especially, and because it starts later. The serious games, I guess, with it starts maybe later. And a team like, for example, United and stuff like that last year, because Football Flashback is in the house. So we'll see what he's betting on the games today. But I think, it might be something where it's a bit easier to say, hey, we're not going anywhere with the league. This is it. And whereas, you're going against another team that's still in the title race. So they're trying to juggle balls, and, like, make it happen on like different avenues, like City, like Champions League, blah, blah. They're trying to do a bunch of different things. Whereas you're like, this is it. I don't even care what happens the weekend before, the weekend after. So it's a way to finish the season with something, so that Ten Hag can come out in the press conference afterwards and be like, what's the problem around here? We're winning trophies left and right.
Yeah, but
that's a manager too.
And that is why it's harder to win for a team like City or Arsenal or Liverpool, because you're trying to do those 3 or 4 things at once, and then you come across like today, like a Southampton, like this is their season right here. This is all they have to play for, because if they beat us, you don't know what that does. You know, that could give them the spark. It's like, all right, now we can get a new manager in. We've got a great result. We're in the semifinals of the League Cup. So you've got these teams that have given up on other tournaments, and while you're still trying to win them. So I think it does make it a lot harder to win.
Yeah, so in that sense, I guess it makes sense. It is harder to win, not because of the opposition, probably more about the timing and what you have to do. Whereas, like what we're doing now, but at the same time, it's kind of like what we're doing now. We're like testing the waters. We're assuming we're going to be testing the waters and putting a bunch of kids out there. But I guess we will find out. Hey, if you're watching right now, hit that thumbs up, subscribe, and we are almost at 1,000. And we were aiming to get there by Christmas. So
close.
Grab a friend by the ear. I think we are like 995 or something like that. So 5 more is all we need. So grab a friend by the ear. And even if you have already grabbed all the ears of all the friends, hit the like button, because that definitely helps have somebody else kind of come across this comedy. And then maybe they'll stick around, or maybe they'll run as fast as they can. But okay, let's answer with some predictions over here. Let's go all 4.
All right.
Arsenal, Palace.
Palace.
What? Really?
Yeah. I think that they have found the rhythm.
Like, you listening to the shits?
They found the rhythm, and Arsenal is in a little bit of a dark place right now. And I think it's enough that if Palace score first, that Arsenal will just play Arsenal, and the fans will start moaning and groaning. Oh, more drop points, and Palace are, you know, that you got to also, the forms coming in. Palace are on a definite high since the City game, so I think that this one goes in Palace's favor, and they always have. Palace have the ability to, and watch, if we beat Southampton, we'll get Palace in the next round. I have to eat my words, but they have the ability to take down a big team. So I'm going to say Palace.
I'm going with Arsenal. And how does this happen? Like this, what kind of a weird coincidence is this? That's Crystal, like, and then they play the weekend.
Yes.
This has happened to us. This happened to us with Brighton, for example. This weekend, Arsenal is going away to Palace.
Yeah.
I say Arsenal win this easily. They get all happy and cocky, and then this weekend at Palace, they lose points, is my prediction for this one. But I think Arsenal take this. And I almost feel like they take this like easy. They score in bunches, and they're like, what's goal scoring problem? And then they go to Palace and they lose, is my guess.
Oh, yeah, that would be it, right? It's like, well, we beat them already. And then, yeah.
That, like, I can just see that scenario playing, especially with Arsenal fans. They'll be that go from like 0 to 100 in like 2 seconds. So they'll be like
Arteta this week in the press conference for this, and they were talking about how many trophies he's won, and he tried to count the community shields. I mean, that is pressure. Like, that is, I think that's.
I got a couple of plates.
Yeah, not only the fans, because it's at the Emirates, so like the fans are also going to feel the pressure. But obviously, if that's your manager going like, we got to count our community shields, like that's pressure from inside the locker room too. That's not a good place to be at all.
Yeah, I think that was we were talking about it on the panel show, and Alan was trying to stick up for him. Of course, he didn't show up at the panel show afterwards, but he was trying to stick up for him. But I was like, that's very Ten Hag like to count those as trophies and stuff. That I think exactly what you're saying.
And I won manager of the month, and Saka won player of the month. Those are 2 more trophies. Tell me it's not together. Tell me it's not a trophy. Yeah, he tangibly handed me a token. That's a trophy right there. I have that. They're physically behind me.
It's like a rec league.
Yeah.
Newcastle, Brentford. I'm going with Newcastle. Newcastle home and Brentford away. I think it's enough said. That's why I'm going with Newcastle.
Yeah. That's become a fortress again. They figured out how to get points at St. James's Park again, and Brentford's away form is awful. So,
honestly, I wish it wasn't at the same time, because I think that will be a fun game to watch. Anything Brentford is involved in is usually pretty interesting anyway. But I think that would be a very open, like a 4-2 or like 3-2 kind of like a game that you're gonna enjoy watching. But we'll be watching this one. Southampton, Liverpool. You'll Never Walk on Family puts this lineup out there. Norris, Gomez, Kwanzaa, Trent, and I think Morton is injured, by the way. I might be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure Morton is out. McAllister, Diaz, Nunez, Elliott. So Elliott is on the right? Yeah, that's a little scary.
McAllister to sit.
But I think Diaz is not going to play 90, so maybe It makes sense. Cohen says the Community Shield is a trophy, just like the UFA Super Cup is a trophy. I think it's one of those things. Like, I'll be honest, like we've done the same thing as Liverpool fans. It's a big deal when you're in it. And then honestly, there have been so many times that when we're not in it, I find out the day of or after the game ended that it was that day. I was like, oh shit, that was today. So it's a huge deal when you're in it. Nobody cares if you're not, kind of a thing. You get the plate and go home. But Southampton Liverpool, I need a score for this one, not just a win.
All right. Oh man, I'll say 1-1. We win on penalties.
Damn, why would you do that? I guess I'm going with the 3-1 win. I don't think, like, I'm seeing all these like predicted lineups. I don't think Chiesa starts, because if Chiesa starts, he's gonna come off in the 40th minute and people are gonna lose their heads. So I'd rather have him come in the second half, the last 30 minutes, start getting some minutes and stuff like that. I actually see Jota coming off the bench, but he said he's going to be rested.
Yeah.
So he's not going to be available. I was hoping like Jota would come in like 20, 30 minutes or something like that. But yeah, you're going to have Diaz or Gakpo, I think, up top. And like I said, I'm pretty sure Morton is injured, but I could be wrong on that one. But I'm going to go with the 3-1. I think either way, maybe because it's Southampton, and I do have faith in Slot to be able to put people in the right place. We need to win, and Spurs need to lose in a penalty shootout. That's going well, speaking of that, Tottenham United.
Yeah, honestly, that one's probably going to be that. A lot of people I think are expecting that to be filled with goals. I think that is a 0-0 penalty shootout. Man United wins. I think because both of them need it, right? Like both of them would love to win this trophy, and so
I
they're both
want Spurs to win this, because I really think it helps us the weekend as well.
Yeah, I mean, it would get their hopes up. There's nothing I love more than that, right? It's like Spurs.
That's why I feel like I want a Spurs win. First of all, so that we can go back to United drama. Like, everyone doesn't know what he's doing. Like, it's like a windshield wiper go back and forth.
Which is what Tottenham are doing on the other. They're just doing the opposite. They're just like crossing each other.
So, like, that's why I think like that should be a good game. That's tomorrow, so we'll get to watch that in its entirety. So that will be tomorrow to take a look at. But so we'll be back obviously for the pre-match once the lineups come out, probably like 30 minutes or so before is when we're going to go live. We'll talk about who's going to play, who the hell plays where, and all that kind of stuff. Will you be joining in the pre?
I will.
All right. And I think we have a couple more joining us for the pre. I don't know who's going to be there for the post. So Sergi, I'm sure, is based on score as always, but then we'll see who hops on for that one. But hey, have a great few hours over here, and then we'll see you guys for the pre-match. Take care.